Hi, everybody. Well, it's 5 o'clock, and that means it's 5 o'clock somewhere on the planet. This is Bob Mehsikomer, and welcome to 5 at 5 Live. Hey, listen, we're going to have a little bit of fun tonight. Don't go anywhere. We've got some really, really cool stuff coming up. We'll be right back. Hi, everyone. Bob Mehsikomer here. Hey, I got a question. What's the hottest thing in your boat during prime musky conditions? If you're like me, it's Grant Big Dog Rods. Talk to the big dog himself. Call him at 847-577-0848. Don't let your lack of success be the death of your fishing. Check out Grim Reaper Lures, spinnerbaits, and bucktails. Call them at 610-593-2492 or look them up on the internet at grimreaperlures.com. Like I said, folks, we're going to have a lot of fun tonight. We are going around the planet. Hey, I'll tell you something. You know, doing what I do has brought me in company of a lot of people. And as this show grows, we're in company of even more people. And tonight I'm going to bring on one of those people that quite frankly, I haven't had the opportunity to meet. We've talked to him. We know a little bit about him. He is going over. He's a Wisconsin pro. He's doing all kinds of things right. Let's bring on Caleb. Caleb, you with us tonight?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Caleb. How are things going?
Things are going great. Yeah, things are going good up here. The weather's finally getting to be a little bit warmer this week, so we're hoping to see some water temperatures come up a little bit.
What are your temps right now?
The bigger lakes are hovering right around 50 still, low 50s. Some of the smaller ones might be mid-50s, but it's still pretty cool for this time of year.
Yeah, that's the same thing we've been seeing, too. We went out, we're looking at the environment around us, and we're thinking, gosh, we got a good opportunity where seasons are moving forward and everything. And then when you get out there and you start looking at the actual elements, i.e. the water temp, they're not where they should be. They're a little bit on the cool side, so that makes it kind of tough.
Yeah, it does. The fish have been kind of stagnant a little bit here for the last couple of weeks, but I think this week's really going to make things pop.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we're looking at some 80s coming up here real soon. Say, bring us up to speed on what you're doing, and let's talk a little bit about your fishing.
Okay. Well, in the last couple months here up in Wisconsin, we've had, before our regular season opener, we have a few opportunities after the ice goes out. I've been fishing the Mississippi River a little bit for walleyes and sauger. We had a great day there earlier in kind of late March, and we caught a pile of big sauger, sauger pushing up and over 20 inches, plus a couple big bonus walleyes. That was really fun. Something to do before the regular season opener the first weekend in May there. And then I also did a lot of rural steelhead fishing up here and fishing some of the South Shore streams of Lake Superior for steelhead. They open early as well. So had a great year there, hooked close to 60 fish, landed over 30. So it was a great spring steelhead season for me.
Do you target walleye? Is that one of your favorite fish?
Yep, definitely. I'm definitely a walleye fan, but I am opportunistic multi-species angler. So when I go to a lake, I'm gonna fish for whatever I can find that's biting and is a good opportunity. So I rarely go to a lake with less than 8 or 10 rods ready to roll for whatever happens to come along. Wow. I'll go out target one fish, in particular, but if I'm fishing for walleyes and I haven't got a bite in 10 minutes and I see a 20-inch smallie cruising the rocks, I'm going to probably get on another pattern pretty quick.
Yeah, well, so is everybody. Oh, goodness almighty, all right. You definitely, you got to dial in if that's what you're taking advantage of. If you see that smallmouth, it's fair game, right?
That's right, yep. And if I see another one, I'm probably going to start targeting those, and who knows what will happen, after that. But
over on Instagram, people can find you at Hooked Up Wisconsin, right? HOOKEDUPWI. And that's where people can interact with you after we're off the show here. I'm telling you right now, I'm looking at some of the pictures that you've sent in. Oh my goodness. What in the world are you doing out on the ice? So you tell me you fish that hard stuff too?
Yeah, I'm actually probably more hardcore when it comes to ice fishing even than open water fishing. And we've got some really good ice fishing opportunities up here in northern Wisconsin, of course, inland and on Lake Superior. So I've been spending quite a bit of time the last 5 or 6 years on Lake Superior targeting lake trout, splake, whitefish, big brown trout. There's all kinds of warm water species there also. You can catch pike, walleyes, perch, all through the ice. So it's quite a multi-species destination, and I live pretty close to it. So it's been a fun one to learn, and I post a lot of information on how and where to find fish out there on the ice as well.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. You multi-species, you're fishing open water, you're fishing solid water. What kind of electronics are you depending on when you're out there? How are you locating where you want to fish? What are the factors you're looking for?
Well, as far as open water goes, I just actually, in the back of my car, I am going to be installing a new Garmin on my boat. So I'm actually going Garmin with that. It's got side scan, down scan, and typical sonar. And, when I'm fishing an area for multi-species, I'm looking for any fish marks on the sonar, and I'm also looking for structure. When I'm fishing an area, I'm constantly watching for structure and putting waypoints on anything that looks different, especially in deeper water. Even a log, a big rock, anything that can hold a fish. And then when I go back to that area, I'll pull back, look for a concentration of GPS waypoints, and I'll kind of start there. And I usually, kind of target fish to begin with to see if there's fish in the area.
What are some of your favorite presentations, especially this time of the year? Listeners and viewers that are watching right now, what can they take to the water? What can you tell them that would be advantageous?
Usually, live bait in cold water is generally a safe bet. I mean, live bait works everywhere, and slow presentations work as well. I'm talking for everything: crappies, walleyes, pike, but don't be afraid to throw bigger baits in cold water, because I've been on a great swim bait bite for the last 2 weeks, throwing 4, 5, 6 inch swim baits in 50-degree water, catching walleyes, bass, pike, even crappies on smaller swim baits. So just because the water's cold doesn't mean they're not going to hit a faster moving, larger profile bait.
Right, you can get a reactionary strike out of these fish. Not every fish is in the same mood of mind, if you will. Some are a little bit more aggressive, some are a little bit more tentative, and all you got to do is sort through to find the one that wants to be a player. And sounds to me like you've got a handle on that. So when you say swim baits, what are the swim bait choices you're looking at the most?
For walleyes, I've been throwing a lot of the Lucky John Tiogas. Actually, they're kind of a newer brand to the States. They've been in Europe for a long time, but they make a really nice 3.5 inch paddle tail on a 1/4 to 3/8 ounce jig head is usually what I'm throwing it on. For bass and pike, the Euro Tackle swim baits are great. The Lucky Johns, anything with a bait fish profile and a paddle tail on it, on a jig head, is going to catch fish pretty much anywhere. It's a hard to beat for just putting fish in the boat.
So all of those fall into your category of specialty baits for this time of the year.
Yep, and they work all summer too. I'll just get bigger with them. I'll just throw bigger ones as the summer progresses. I'll be throwing 7, 8 inch swim baits by July.
Hey, I'm getting a pattern here. It's called bigger.
I love throwing big baits.
I'm with you, man.
Some fish haven't seen. A lot of people try and finesse fish and it works. But there's a lot of fish that will not bite a finesse bait, and they'll smash a 6-inch swim bait swim past them.
I totally agree. Are you doing any guiding? Just curious. I don't know if you are or aren't. Are you doing any guiding?
Nope, not at the moment. Maybe in the future, but at the moment, no. I'm just creating some content, trying to get, help people catch fish, and seeing where that leads.
Good. Well, it sounds to me like you're spending some time developing technique and presentation, and that's really what it's all about. That's where the science of the sport comes in. And you were talking water temperature. I mean, you're talking all the right elements, and that's really crucial. It is key for being able to duplicate whatever you've done. Go back and do it a second or third or fourth time. I noticed that when you were talking about marking your GPS waypoints and what have you, you mentioned the word cluster, which is key. It's a very important factor. Yeah, very.
The more structure you have in an area, the more fish it will hold, and that includes weeds. I look for large weed beds when I'm looking for bigger concentrations of fish, just because the more structure you have in an area, the larger the biomass can be.
Wow. Can I ask you one thing? We're gonna let you go. We're getting down to the end of this, but I want to be able to touch base with you throughout the summer. Would you open up your phone for us to do that, and maybe even do some stuff from the water? If you're out there doing it, we'll get some up-to-date stuff from the water. Does that sound like it might be fun?
Yeah, I would be open to that. I mean, that's something I've considered doing myself, doing some more live type stuff. So, yeah, definitely we can work on that for sure.
Man, I'd love to take you up on it. I really, really would. I want to say thanks for coming on, Caleb. You've been a great guest. You've got some insights I think people can take to heart. Those lures that you mentioned, they're Greek to me, so time for me to get on an internet and start looking at some stuff. I think it's cool.
Oh yeah. Check out Eurotackle and Lucky John. They're two new companies to the States, and they're making some really cool stuff.
Good enough. Hey, appreciate you coming on. Please pass the word. When you get off, send us a couple of comments on the comment board. I appreciate it. It has been our pleasure having you on, Caleb. Let's have you back in the future.
All right. Thanks for having me.
All righty, young man. Thank you.
Talk to you later.
You bet. Hey, everybody. Big announcement. Everybody's tied up right now with this coronavirus stuff. Well, I want to tell you a little bit about somebody that's not tied up, and that's the Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame, folks. You guys can give Emmett Brown a call up there at 715-634-4440, or go online to freshwater-fishing.org. and get more information on when you can get into the actual Hall of Fame itself. It looks like June 4th, the grounds and museums are going to open, and that is so cool. Time to get out of the house, folks. Time to go out and have a little bit of fun. Time to find a if you will, somebody that wants to get out and join it with you, and that could be a family member. All righty. I'm going to say real quick, I have had the opportunity to travel all over the world. Years ago, I got an opportunity to go to the Netherlands, and I spoke at a show in Rotterdam called the Visma Show. Now, for those of you who frequent American sports shows, well, I'm here to tell you, American sports shows are okay, they're fun, but they don't hold a candle to what I saw at the Visma Show. These tradesmen and craftsmen come in and build the most exclusive, absolutely beautiful sets inside this huge building, cabin settings with fireplaces and you name it. It's just like you're walking into a 5-star lodge up in Canada. And in there are professionals and their goods and rods and equipment and what have you. And I was over there, like I said, and I talked northern pike for 10 days at that show. And I just wish that I'd had the opportunity to meet this gentleman that I'm about to introduce to you folks, because I would have been fascinated by it. You know, big pike, folks, are a huge, huge, huge commodity in Europe, and especially in the Netherlands. And with that being said, I'm going to put a big shout out to a gentleman that we are going to get on the show here in the future. Pim, he is an absolute phenomenal big fish fisherman. You can reach Pim at Fishing with Pim, and that's going to be his handle over on Instagram. And while I'm talking a little bit about him, here's what I want you folks to do. I want you, after viewing some of the stuff that this gentleman sent us, I want those comments full of how many people want to see us learn and take more advantage of what these big pike fishermen are doing over there in the Netherlands and what they can teach us. Folks, feast your eyes on some of Pim's fish. I'm telling you, I'm a big pike fisherman, and I've gone into Alaska, I've gone into the territories, I've gone into Athabasca, where my biggest came from 53 inches, and I'm telling you, this guy is on some absolute gorillas. And I know that we've got some fans over there in Europe, and I know they're listening to us, or at least we hope they are. And they can understand what I'm talking about when I say, these are truly monster fish, absolutely huge fish. And I think, in all honesty, if you guys fill that comment box up, give him some love. Send him those loves, man. And let's get him on the show. Now, I'll tell you what's going on. Pim is going through some very tough times right now physically. He's had some neck injuries, so therefore his season has been put on hold. And if anybody knows what it's like to want to go fishing these giant fish and have the capabilities and skill sets that he's got, well, it's pretty downheartening when you can't do it because of a physical drawback. So that being said, God bless you, Pim. I want to have you on the show in the future. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Even if our audience doesn't jump up and down and do backflips over these gorilla fish, and I mean these are georellas. It's craziness. I've got a friend of mine, Kurt Fenton, who I've tried to take on big pike shoots over the years, and he's a muskie pro. I mean, he's as good as they come on muskie fishing, and he won't fish pike, and I find that so heartening. In addition to the big pike that Pim sent us his fish, he also gave us a little insight on his background. His personal record of 54 inches, folks, caught on what we call soft plastics here. Okay, they call them soft baits there, and they're using lures that are in the form of trout. Now, I mentioned Alaska. When we were fishing big pike in Alaska, we noticed that the big pike, the monster pike, were taking full advantage of the pink salmon that were coming in. And that what he's saying here right now in terms of those baits and the profile of those trout and the patterns of those trout could be incredibly important. Now, who doesn't want one of these? I'm asking that question. Who doesn't want one of these? This is one of Pim's fish. I'm telling you, man, I don't think I can carry his tackle box, much less his fish. And in addition to that, he's one of these kind of guys that likes to share. He's got all kinds of glory to himself, but he wanted to introduce us to Sigfrid Schoen, okay? Now, that name's going to become very familiar with you as you go forward. Sigfrid Schoen caught an absolutely enormous pike. Now, he caught on a lake that they fish 138 centimeters, 55 inches long, over 20 kilos. You guys do the math on it, folks. I'm not going to do it for you. Do the math. It's as big a pike as I've ever seen. I did see one like this fishing out of the midnight sun in Alaska that Greg Beavis and I could not get to eat. And when I came away, I told Greg, I said, Greg, if I've ever seen a 45-pound fish, that was it. And this is what you're looking at. This is the record fish that Sigfrid sent to us, or that Pim sent to us that Sigfrid caught. I'm telling you, folks, gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Send us the love. Send us the comments. We'll be right back. Hi, everyone. Bob Mehsikomer here. Don't let your lack of success be the death of your fishing. Check out Grim Reaper Lures, spinnerbaits, and bucktails. Call them at 610-593-2492 or look them up on the internet at grimreaperlures.com. Hi everyone, Bob Mehsikomer here. Hey, I got a question. What's the hottest thing in your boat during prime musky conditions? If you're like me, it's Grant Big Dog Rods. Talk to the big dog himself. Call him at 847-577-0848.
Hello.
All righty, dialing right now. Is this Dan?
Yes, sir, it is. Thanks for having me.
Hi, Dan. This is Bob at 5 at 5. How are you doing?
Pretty good, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing really good. Now, I hear a little southern in that voice, so where are we calling from?
Maybe a little bit. I'm calling from Lakeland, Florida.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Way down there.
Yeah, I'll say you're down there, no doubt about it. So how's your fishing been down there?
It's been pretty good. I have to say every place here in Central Florida I've been in the past couple of months, it's been hot everywhere. Pretty much.
How hot is hot?
Well, hot as in the fish are biting. But
that kind of hot.
Yeah. It's mostly, finding the fish, and it's not really been the bait you use for the most part, but just finding the fish. And if you can find them and you can use, a decent bait on them, you'll catch some.
All right. In our neck of the woods up here where we are, we've had open water for only a few weeks, and our water temps are very cold, so we haven't even hit the spawn yet. Now, that being said, being from Florida, you guys have the luxury of being able to involve yourselves in 2 and sometimes 3 spawning cycles on the largemouth. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. That's pretty much. It starts, February through March, and then you have a few late bloomers you can still catch, but for the most part now they're pretty much done for the most part, but you'll still find a few. Okay,
so you're fishing post spawn right now. What kind of techniques are we taking the Florida fish in post spawn right now?
Well, flipping and pitching cattails, lily pads, heavy cover. You catch a lot during the spawn, pre-spawn, and post spawn that way, and that's what I usually start out doing is flipping and using soft plastic baits, crawdads or creature baits, whatever. And
are you using larger varieties than what we're accustomed to here? I've fished down in Mexico for largemouth and Honduras for largemouth, and we've upsized, from what we're typically using up here, the 6 and 7. Some guys will move out to the 8 inchers, but on the soft plastics, you guys are throwing some pretty giant stuff, aren't you?
Well, not really. I mean, good. I use I use a 3.5 inch crawdad.
Oh, really?
Crawdad.
Okay.
Yep. And sometimes you can use big worms too. And maybe like 4-inch creature baits or something like that. But they're all working pretty good. So
okay, so you're
like I said, if you can find them and you can get that in there, they're going to hit it.
Okay, so you're not going to that big monster stuff. Okay, I can see that. I fished down in Florida, fishing tournaments down in Florida with a good friend of mine, Pete Davids, and we, in the early season, a little earlier than right now, to be honest with you, we were throwing real big Raplas and things. I mean, big stick baits. And we were doing a lot of twitching and stopping. And this is back in the, late 70s and in the very, very early 80s that we were down there doing that, and found some remarkable fish. Fact is, I had one die accidentally, and in the case of doing that, I brought it to a friend of mine who spent a little time and put it in a mount for me because the fish just didn't make it. But I can see by your successes there, goodness gracious, Dan, you're holding 2 really gorgeous fish. Now, those fish were caught how? Do you remember?
Oh yeah, that was actually that was Friday. I usually start out. I like to flip, so I usually start out doing that. And you can usually tell pretty quick if you're going to get any or not. So I wasn't doing too good doing that. So I usually move out after that, away from the shoreline a little bit, and we have a lot of hydrilla down here.
Yep.
So I throw spinnerbait a lot too. So that's my second choice. So start throwing the spinnerbait in that hydrilla, and you gotta kind of have to move it kind of quick because it'll get hung up in there. You just gotta move it through, and when you move it through that hydrilla, you'll find a break in the hydrilla or a pocket, and as soon as it hits that pocket, that fish is waiting there for bait fishing. He's gonna hit that spinnerbait, and that's how I got those two.
Yep. Now, I got a question for you in regards to your actual spinnerbait choice. Being that you're fishing spinnerbaits and you said you're moving them along, you got to keep them moving. Are we kind of leaning on the willow blades, something that stays down in the column but faster?
Yep, I'm actually using I believe it's 3/8 ounce. It's a 4-blade willow blade.
Okay. All righty. Nice.
Yep.
Nice. Now you sent us another picture which you've put a little bit of a artistic effect on it. And I'm telling you, I wouldn't mind going to the scales with this weight.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Me neither.
Me neither. So tell us a little bit about these. These are absolutely gorgeous fish.
Those were actually all those were flipping.
Flipping.
Yep.
So again,
that's the 3.5-inch soft plastic. I believe it was a Z-Man crawdad I was using that day.
So in that case, are we flipping the hyacinths and the hydrilla, or pads?
No, that's going to be. I got those in the cattails, and the lake I've been fishing, it's only about a foot deep up in the cattails, so they're pretty spooky. You got to kind of move slow, and you toss it in there. Don't leave it in there a long time. Just keep it moving, and that's pretty much how I caught those. I don't know anything about your water clarity, but do you have any opportunity to sight fish these big girls? Yeah, yep. Yeah, a lot of places you can do that here. The water's kind of, it was only about a foot deep where I caught those. And it's got a muddy bottom, so it gets stirred up really easy with a trolling motor or whatnot. And but you can still see them, here and there. But most of the time, you can't see them. So you can sometimes. You sent us a gorilla fish, a single shot that you've got. I'm not even going to put a guess to the weight, but it's got to be really close to 10. Just guessing. Yeah, that one was 10.5. Yeah. Yeah. And, that's a sweetheart. That was during a spawn, and it was about, I'd have to say, that was about 5 to 6 foot of water, and in the grass. And I've caught a few more that day, probably 8 pounds or so. But you can, when they're spawning, you can actually see the grass moving, and that's how I caught that one. I saw the grass moving, and I threw it in there, and I got that one. Yeah, you can definitely tell that's a giant fish. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. Just summing this up. Give me your 3 best presentations that if some of our listeners or some of our viewers happen to be in the Florida area or maybe traveling down there, 3 best quick techniques that they need to be aware of when they come down, in your opinion. In my opinion, it's what I do all the time. Start flipping, you're going to tell pretty soon if you're going to get a bite or not or get a fish. And you can flip, Florida just about all year long anyways. Yeah. So if not, back off, throw a spinnerbait, because, you can throw a spinnerbait anywhere pretty much, and cover a lot of ground that way. Yeah, it is a good, is a good bait to, like you say, cover real estate. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And if they're not, up and hitting the cattails, then throw the spinnerbait out. They're probably hitting bait fish or whatnot. And if worst comes to worst, you can always back off a little bit, throw a worm, work it nice and slow, and that'll be just like a Texas rig worm, and you can't go wrong with that either. Wow. Man, I tell you, I miss not being able to fish the Florida bass. I haven't been down there in a very long time, but I really enjoyed the times that Pete Davids and I would go down there. We caught our share of fish down there. We need to get back down.
saying that Florida fishing is good is an understatement, and like you said, you have a variety of seasons. In other words, if you miss the first spawn, you can get a part of the second spawn, and the spawn dwindles each time. It's not as large the third time as it is the first, obviously. But that being said, you have 3 different windows that you can hit those fish on typically. So I got to say this, Dan, I really do. You've got some pretty good skill sets there. You're catching some really big fish. Going away from the show tonight, anything you want to say? I know that you have a Instagram name. Let's put that back up for you real quick, so people out there that are interested know how to get a hold of Dan. Dan, do you do any guiding, or are you just fishing?
Right now I'm just fishing, but I'm hoping to be doing some guiding in the future. So
bait _N_1 is how the folks can reach you on Instagram.
Oh yeah, if anybody has any questions or anything, they can hit me up there.
Yeah, they can share a little bit about what's going on. Man, I'm telling you, I miss not being able to fish those Florida fish. I really do. I want to thank you for coming on the show. Well, like I said, we're going around the globe tonight. We're up here in the musky waters and the northern pike waters, and we've got largemouth bass. We just don't have 8s and 10s and 12s. So we've got those fish to fish up here. It's just that our season's just starting to unfold. As we move forward, as we move forward in our television cycle, then we're going to start hitting those muskies and pike and stuff, and we're going to have some of this bass is going to slide kind of back in the preference scale. But right now, I think it's a neat way to do. Are you using any of those Ned rigs or anything like that down there right now?
No, sir, I'm not. Not right now.
You're not? Okay, good enough. Hey, listen, I want to thank you, Dan, for coming on the show. I hope you had as much fun as we did, and look forward to talking to you down the line. Sound good?
Yes, sir. Appreciate you having me.
All righty, my pleasure, no doubt about it. Hey, folks, we're about to dial up our next guest because we've got a unique fisherman coming up right now. I'm going to show you what it's all about here in just a second. Let's see if we can get him on. Yeah, we're dialing the number. Let's see if we can get him. Yeah, that'd be the tone we're listening for.
Hello?
Hey, Jake, we got you on the phone.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing just fine, Jake. It's Bob Mehsikomer at 5 at 5. How you doing tonight? Ready to catch some fish with us?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Now, I got to tell you something, okay? You, obviously, if you look at your Instagram name, it's your last name, _kayak_fishing, okay? So that being said, Jake, you're not fishing out of a 21-foot legend right now. You're fishing out of something far different than what I typically fish out of. Tell us a little bit about how you're doing it.
I've got my just got my Vibe Kayaks Shearwater 125. It's an absolutely amazing kayak. It's got a pedal drive system and I've got a Bixby motor coming in to add on to it. The stability on it is actually absolutely insane. I'm able to stand up and fish and be pretty comfortable out on the water all day. And other than the fact that I can't go more than about 5 miles an hour, it's got everything I need.
Wow, I'm looking at an image of you standing. When this image came into me, and I was in the studio, and I'm looking at this going, I have tried kayak fishing. I really have. And it's tough to get to 250 on the back of a kayak, so I lost interest in it way too early. And I've never been in a kayak that I could do what you're doing, standing upright in that boat.
Tell you what, the kayak fishing industry in general over the past few years has made incredible advancements in what they're able to do. And I mean, some of these kayaks, you wouldn't even believe how stable they are. And obviously, like you said in that picture, I'm actually standing on the back of the seat. So not just standing, I stepped up onto the back of the seat where they've got a little perch, and I'm able to fish from there.
So you're on the back of the seat. Goodness.
Yeah.
What's the elevation above the craft itself when you're doing this?
So that gives you an extra 16 inches of height.
Wow.
So a 1.5 foot-ish.
Wow. And as a result of that, you're doing these. I've got a picture of you with an obviously gorgeous fish while in your kayak. And I'll be the first to tell you it's a nice fish, but you have really nice conditions right there, too.
Yeah. I know I sent you in a couple. Is that the one of me sitting down with the fish?
Yes, that's the one of you sitting down with the fish. Yeah.
Yeah. That was that day actually got a little windy after that. But being in the kayak, if the winds start blowing really hard, it can be pretty tough. But usually I'll set my limit at about 15 miles an hour. If it gets above that, it just kind of gets tough out there. But if I'm fishing a tournament, then you just got to deal with what you get.
Now, wait a minute. You're fishing a tournament in a kayak?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, there's been a lot of kayak tournaments coming out with the coronavirus stuff going on.
I suppose.
And actually, like, everything for kayak tournaments is pretty much based online to begin with. So a lot of organizations have been able to come out with their own online tournaments. I just fished a tournament. They actually set it up like a March Madness style tournament. It was a bracket style tournament. There were 64 anglers, and every weekend you fished one-on-one against one other person. And unfortunately, it wasn't me, but they just crowned a champion this past weekend.
So let me understand what you just said. You're fishing one-on-one. So am I understanding that, let's say there's 30 people that want to get in, you draw one person, another person draws, and you only fish against that one person?
That's right, yeah. So,
unique.
So like I said, it's all online, and it's called the Kayak Racket Bass Tour. But basically, you're fishing like each weekend. If you win, you move on to the next weekend of fishing.
Wow.
And they do it all based on inches as opposed to pounds.
Right.
So what you do, you catch your fish, you put it on a measuring board, and take a picture and submit the picture to the leaderboard.
Yeah, I've got the picture up with your bump board in there, and I was kind of curious that bump board is, you photograph it. Obviously, you can see the total length of the fish. You measure it to the 1/8 of an inch, to a 1/4 of an inch. How are we measuring it?
To the 1/4 inch.
To a 1/4 of an inch. And then if you're a 1/4 inch shy of the other guy, you go home and he goes on.
That's it, yeah. I'll tell you what, it was a really exciting format because you actually get to see the leaderboard throughout the day too. So it's a little bit more nerve-wracking than kind of just thinking about what's happening. You actually get to see if you're in the lead or not. And you take the lead and it's really exciting, and you lose the lead and it's a little I got to get back in there.
So are you monitoring that board on the telephone then? How are you monitoring it?
Yeah, so you take the picture on your phone, and then there's an app. Tourney X is what I've used for most of my tournaments, and you submit it through there, and that's where they're keeping track of everything.
Well, I'll tell you, we've got a creative society. We really do. Anglers don't want to be cooped up. Let's face it, we don't. We've got crafts, we've got talent, we have resource, we have all of these elements, and to be locked in 4 walls with some glass windows just doesn't work for the human. And it seems to me like you guys have found a very unique way to get around that. I would like to see, does anybody videotape any of these tournaments? I know that they're singles, they're on pairs, so you don't have a big, concentration of anglers, but I'd like to see this thing go down. I'd like to see it happen. I'd like to show it on the show.
I believe Kayak Bass Fishing has done some video for some of their bigger tournaments. I'm not 100% on that. But also that same thing, Kayak Bass Bracket Tour, they've been interviewing fishermen while they're on the water. They called me a couple times throughout the tournament, and just checking in with everybody throughout the day. They do a Skype call, so you get the video. So you don't necessarily need like a cameraman there for you.
Right.
You just got Skype on your phone.
Right. I wonder, I'm not tuned into the kayak world. That's why I thought it was fascinating to have you come on, because there's facets of this sport and this industry that I'm certainly not privy to. I wonder if anything like this is going on in Minnesota. How broad spectrum is this type of event? Any idea?
It's very broad. So again, I'm just going to keep talking about the bracket tournament just because that's the one I just fished.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
There's people from all over the country. My first round, I fished against someone in Tennessee, then somebody in Kentucky in the second round, and in the third round, actually, I fished against somebody in my backyard down here in Florida.
Wow.
But yeah, it's there. And other than that, I know there was fishermen in, I believe, Michigan, Ohio, out to California. Literally all over the country.
The people who organize this event, do you know how to get a hold of them?
Yeah, probably social media would be the best way. You can look for the page. It's called Kayak Bass Bracket Tour.
Okay.
And Greg Nozar was the director of everything. He started it out just to get everybody kind of fishing during these difficult times, and it kind of blew up. They just started, like I said, a champion was just crowned for the first one, and they started a second round with actually 128 fishermen.
I'll tell you why I asked that question. I know we're on bass subject here, and I know we're talking about kayak fishing, but we have a species up here, muskie, which is it's a low percentage fish to start with. There's generally not a ton of them caught. If you had a field of, say, 100 anglers involved in a day, about 6 to 8 of those anglers are actually going to successfully catch a legal fish. So that being said, I could see implementing this type of deal in the muskie world. I could see it happening.
Absolutely. So I'm actually from Cleveland, Ohio originally. I've only been in Florida for a couple of years now. And
you're not going back to Cleveland, are you?
What's that?
You're not going back to Cleveland, are you?
If it's up to me, I don't know. Probably not. But I got a lot of friends back in Ohio that do a lot of muskie fishing in some of the smaller lakes out there. And, like they go out in their kayaks, they catch a muskie, they carry the big nets with them, and they're able to get them to shore and land them and, get some pictures with them. But it's definitely able to be done fishing from a kayak.
Interesting. I don't know that I would do it from the kayak, but I would let the anglers use this one-on-one profile system and fish muskies so they could fish different bodies of water. I could see some neat things out of this. I really could. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool. Especially it throws another element in there too, where it throws an element of luck where one guy might have some bad weather and somebody else, might have the perfect day for fishing. And you got to be able to choose your right spot for the conditions. You might call it luck, you might call it skill. But whatever it is, it's another aspect of it of it that adds to the challenge.
It is what it is. That's what it is. It's as simple as that. You could be fishing a tournament in the same lake and have the diversity from one end of the system to the other. So, it's, being a state apart doesn't really matter. Listen, tell me something real quick. The kayak fishing. What are some of the patterns or techniques that you use in the kayak that may or may not be used in conventional boats?
You can get into some seriously shallow water,
right?
Which is great. You can, I've had, there's been times where I can't get over or past certain areas of a body of water, and I just got to get out and drag my kayak over it, and just like that, I've got access to another spot of the lake or river that nobody else does. So that's always helpful. But that's the biggest thing. Something I think is tough with the kayak fishing is, you don't have the ability to cover as much water as someone in a bass boat.
Yeah.
So you get this small area. Let's say you choose to put in at a certain area of the lake. You get a small section of the lake. You have to find the fish in that area. There's no driving from the south to the north end of the lake. You're there, and you just got to figure out what they're going to hit.
Well, I tell you one thing, I found the same thing when I was kayak fishing. My brain wanted to fish the entire lake, and I found myself very limited, which to me was handcuffed. But it seems like you've tolerated it. Let me show the folks, if you don't mind. I want to show them your personal best. Now, this is out of your kayak, right?
Correct, yeah.
So this is your personal best out of a kayak. Folks, take a look at that fish. Now, you tell me that in Florida where this is all going on, or where you have these big fish waters, and it could be in Tennessee, Kentucky, Georgia, Louisiana, I don't really care. If you want to go out and try to hammer these fish out of a kayak, you can sneak up on them, and as Jake has proven it to us anyway, do quite well doing it. Jake, that's a beautiful, absolutely beautiful fish. So what was that one caught on?
That was, thank you very much, but that was on Fellsmore Reservoir, and that it's a small body of water, and it's actually kayak only or paddle only. So they're in the process of putting a ramp in, which kayak fishermen are not all that happy about, but but it's kind of like a hidden gem in the kayak world, or for kayakers, I guess.
I can see that.
There's people pulling 10+ pounders out of there every single day.
Wow.
For me, that's where I was fishing every single time we had a round of the bracket tournament. That's the lake I was going to, and just because I know there was huge fish in there, and I was able to make it into the Sweet 16 fishing that lake, and it's like I said, it's a smaller body of water. It's a lot of hydrilla, a lot of mats, but it's very fishable from a kayak.
Sounds to me like it's perfect for a kayak, to be honest with you. Yeah,
it does. I think the boats are going to have a hard time when the boat ramp gets put in, actually.
Yeah. Hey, listen, you've shared a lot of information with us, this unique kayak tournament. I never dreamt of anything like that. I think that's really cool. We probably spent a little bit more time on that than we should have, but the truth of the matter is, if it's new, it's new. And if people are doing it, that's what this is all about. I want to say thanks, Dan, Jake, for coming on. We will put up your information here one more time so the folks out there can reach you on Instagram, because it sounds to me like you might have a pretty big following, at least in that kayak side of it. It's pretty cool. So yeah, I'd love to have, I know it's a broken record, but I'd love to have you as well as our other guests on another show. Sound good?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
No, it's been our pleasure all the way. You do me a favor. You go out there, stick some more big fish, have some fun. That's what it's all about. Thanks for coming on the show, Jake. Truly appreciate it. Send us some more pictures. Pass the word.
Will do. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you. Hey, folks, like I said, we're going around the world tonight. We did the Netherlands, Florida. We had really a lot of good information tonight. We've got more coming up in weeks to go. I mean, tell you right now, Casey is lining up guests like no tomorrow. She's got the Instagram up and working. If you look around the perimeter of this shot that we're in right now, these are the people who are making it possible for us. There are some open spots on there, folks. Let's fill them up. Get a hold of us, bob.m@fishandstickstv, and let's get you on board, bob.m@fishandstickstv.com. Let's get you on board. Start supporting us. Help us out. We appreciate it. In the meantime, if you've got a friend that's at all interested in the sport, let them know about 5 at 5 Live, Monday nights right here, and we'll try to bring you guys some more and interesting programming. So that being said, as we go out of here tonight, folks, remember, it is what it is until it isn't. Hi everyone, Bob Mehsikomer here. Hey, I got a question. What's the hottest thing in your boat during prime musky conditions? If you're like me, it's Grant Big Dog Rods. Talk to the big dog himself. Call him at 847-577-0848. Don't let your lack of success be the death of your fishing. Check out Grim Reaper Lures, spinnerbaits, and bucktails. Call them at 610-593-2492 or look them up on the internet at grimreaperlures.com.